Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. It's about families joining together under one roof and just trying to stay out of each other's way while learning and growing together and getting into hijinks week after week and really teaching America what it means to be together as a family.
Episode over.
I'm talking, of course, about the Brady Bunch.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck this is. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name's Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Fast X. Fex.
Yeah, it really does sound like a courier service.
Yes. And you know what?
It sounds like an option I can select at FedEx. FastX. For when it really needs to be there overnight.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Fuck it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, only $30 more, sure.
I'll pay $50 extra for that service.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Let's start back at the beginning, shall we? Los Angeles, 2001. Humble roots, local kids, street racers who became hijackers. Graduated to high-speed smuggling. Mobile jailbreaks. Train robberies. If it could be done in a car, they did it. If it violates the laws of God and gravity, they did it twice.
But the days where one man behind the wheel of a car can make a difference are over. It's time to prepare for what's coming.
You might want to buckle up.
Listen. Hi, hello. So this is a podcast about movies where we talk about movies.
So far, so good.
Yeah. And we have just watched the movie. And in this case, that movie is Fast X, the 10th Fast and Furious movie.
The final ride, Dave.
Yeah, is it though?
Well, it's part one of two, maybe
or
three.
Yeah. Starring all of the people. Action, you know the deal. The series has gotten
it's the Katamari Damacy of movies, right? Where it just as it continues on, it just keeps picking up new cast members and it's
100%.
One of the most fascinating franchises in movie history, I think.
Yes, I guess.
In terms of its trajectory, what it was, what it became, and what it became again, and what it's become now, it's pretty wild. This is a unique franchise.
Yeah, and I mean, in the 9th one, they went to space. Kind of this idea of they know what they are to some extent. They know that people are laughing at them, and they got more and more over the top, more and more like so bad it's good. Is I would say how a lot of people enjoy these, and it's definitely like, it's gone far off the rails many times at this point, that it's practically a superhero film. That's the whole gimmick, right?
It's like even beyond that. It's like, it's graduated into, it's like almost vaudeville, right? Like it's almost farce, because it's like, the actors, like, you have really great actors that get put into these movies. Like Helen Mirren and Charlize Theron, and like people that, obviously the core cast is good as well. But you get sort of Brie Larson, like another person who has an Oscar.
Everybody wants to be in on the joke,
right? And
everybody wants to ham it up.
They all want to have these scenes that are just like the most inexcusably ham-bony scenes of ludicrous exposition, but it's all done so tongue-in-cheek that it's like beyond superhero at this point. It's like, it's almost it's like a parody of movies at this point.
It's like a movie that'd be an Idiocracy.
Yeah.
But it's not a movie you should look at and go, oh, people are stupid, because it knows what it's doing.
Not at all.
And everybody's in on the game, right? At this point.
It's not mean-spirited. It's not
hold on. Everybody's in on it except for one person.
Except for one person, chiefly, primarily, in particular, one Vincent Diesel is not in on the joke.
It's like the Michael Douglas movie, The Game, where it's like everybody is making this elaborate thing. It's like he's a Make-A-Wish kid.
I was about to say it's when a room full of adults is playing along with a 5-year-old's game.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it really is that. It's Vin unironically, and that's what makes this movie so great, is Vin has the unironic taste of a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah.
So he thinks all of this stuff is cool as shit, and it is cool as shit, but it's also really funny.
Right. But I really wanted to hammer that home, because I gotta say, this movie sucked, I thought.
I liked this one better than the last one. I didn't think this movie sucked. I didn't think it was great, and I think you're really starting to see the seams. I think it's good that it's ending, because, like I said, it really is apparent in this movie that these films have become farce. Like they're parodies of parodies at this point.
Yeah, but here's my argument.
I still thought it was entertaining.
I guess, but here's my argument is, as a farce, I thought this was bad. I thought this was I took a timer to this movie because something fascinated about it, or there was something that fascinated me about it. 90 minutes into this film, there is 2 car scenes, and one of them's just like a race. The action of this movie, in my opinion, sucked. That's what I mean as an over the top action farce. I thought it did a bad job. We'll go through it, but
I thought it did better than the last movie.
Well, I mean, it's all CGI pretty much, except for I looked into it, and they did this. I love it when they do this. The director did an interview where he's like, "No, it's practical effects, baby." And I read the interview, and the only example they gave was the beginning scene, the bomb. They're like, "That bomb's real," and it's like, "Yeah, it's a prop." Is that how low the bar is now? It's like, yeah, the physical bomb that you dragged around or rolled, yeah, there's some real shots of that. It's like when Jurassic World was like, we're back to animatronics, and what they actually meant was a single dinosaur head in one scene.
Right.
And it's that where this isn't practical. There's very few actual action scenes in this.
Right.
And most of them are CG.
Yes. That's the thing with this series, though, is it's been that for so long that I don't go to this movie expecting that. I go to this movie expecting to see not to be thrilled by the action set pieces, but to be entertained by how charmingly over the top they can go. And it's they the last one, I thought they didn't do that. So it was like a double whammy of boring, where it's like it's big CGI stunts and they're also not interesting. I thought this movie did a better job of making them interesting, because I was entertained by them in the way that I'd be entertained by cartoon action. You know what I
mean? I see. I still don't fully agree with that, because I get that. Yeah, I don't quite remember Fast 9, but I know that one was boring as shit.
It was real boring.
But when we look at the action scenes of this, we have that first Vatican scene, and that's a fun opening offer for sure. But in terms of car stunts, they just keep flipping things. You know what I mean? All the practical stunts is they flip cars or flip trucks,
or they're dragging things.
Yeah, and that's the only thing they had in this. And you compare it to some of the other ones where they threw cars out of a plane, or a car jumped from one building to another in Dubai, and so this actually felt like an early installment. For that reason, where it didn't feel like they really brought it, and the first sequence is okay, that was fun, but it kind of ends with them just hitting a crane in the CGI shot, and the crane hitting the ball into the water, and I was like, that's fine, but
don't say that it just kind of ends with him hitting a crane, because what happens is he rockets off a bridge at, I don't know, 160 miles an hour and crashes head first into a crane that then sends his car pinwheeling off into the distance. I howled when that happened.
I mean, it's definitely fun.
It's so like, I thought this movie did a better job. Well, this is interesting because I thought this movie did a better job at nailing the melodrama that makes it fun, but also this movie is too melodramatic in my opinion. But I have something written down for that specifically later. But like, it really did a good job of like having them be like, Dom, you got to get out of there. And his like eyes narrow and he's like, I haven't tried everything yet. And he just, I can't stress enough, he just rocket cars head first into the side of a crane.
Right. But again, it's
very funny.
It's a CGI scene and nobody's affected. No. So it's like, and for me, it's like the Transformers film where it's just kind of like, okay, like, yeah, that is a cartoon. Like, yeah, I could.
It struck me like when Batman in the latest Battinson, the Batman,
right? It
struck me like the scene where he eats shit when he's done base jumping. Like it's like it's in this moment where like the music is swelling and it's supposed to be high tension and this big action payoff, and it's the funniest, most slapstick shit you've ever seen.
For sure. But that's all to say that's one of two car chases in the first 90 minutes. Actually, hour 45, I clocked it. Because the second one is just the drag race, and he just puts bombs, and then it's just exploding cars, and that's a 3-minute scene. And I just thought, in terms of like, okay, we're going to make an over-the-top dumb action movie, that just didn't feel like enough for an hour 45 minutes in. It's basically one big set piece and then a drag race. And then some fight scenes that I would argue is just not their strong... You know, it's Fast and Furious, right? Like, you're here for the car stunts.
It's not their strongest thing. You're not getting John Wick, the Raid level stunt work. They still... And the fight scenes, so I thought were still okay. Like, Michelle Rodriguez and Charlize Theron had a good one.
Yeah, they're fine. They're perfectly like serviceable. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of weird to me how like I found the action in this very mediocre overall. Where like again, an hour 45 in, am I missing something? Because I
no, you're right. It's these movies. I mean, they have the two big set pieces where it's the drag race and the Vatican chase, but there's also like the opening action sequence, and there's a couple of like smaller like fist fights and things like that happen in between. But you're right, and those are the two big sequences. But and
then the ending sequence is just a chase on the highway that I was like, we've seen this. We've seen it so many times. And then he drives down a dam, which was fun, but you know, not real. That's so I was just like, it was weird to me. It was like there was no big, oh my God, look at this stunt we pulled off. You know what I mean? Like we you know, like Mission Impossible has always a stunt. And I always felt like these movies were supposed to be that way too.
They may have been supposed to have been that 20 years ago, but it's not it's not what they are, and it's not what they have been for the past decade and change. So it's like you I guess you got to stop expecting that from these movies because it's not what they are.
Right, and that's all to say I'm kind of like done, I think.
That's fair.
Because I'm like it's
finish. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just because it's like I didn't get, in terms of action, it gave me nothing. Like there was nothing in this that I either hadn't seen before or just wasn't real, you know? And so it was just like, even the over the top stuff was still not as over the top as other films has done, you know what I mean? So it just kind of felt middle of the road, and like, really? For the 10th Fast and the Furious film, this is all you could think of?
Right.
Like, you know, like you compare it to like Hobbs and Shaw, where he's muscling, holding down that line of cars hanging from a helicopter.
I think Hobbs and Shaw is probably the best one of these that's come out, which is funny because I hear a lot of people say the opposite and that it's the worst. But to me, that like of the past couple of Fast movies, that's the one that's really understood. Okay, if we're not going to do stunts for real, they have to be so over the top.
Yes, and I think they did. It was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think this movie has, you know, the casts, we said it was the Katamari Damacy of movies. The casts have gotten so big that you have to spend so much time on this interpersonal stuff and getting each character brought into the plot. Like it really starts winnowing away at the time that you have for action sequences. That's definitely true. I think it's also true that series needs to recalibrate, which is funny because this is their big swan song, but it's like it escalated so much to the point where they literally went to space in the last one, and he like his car Tarzan swung off of a cliff. So it's like they have to like sort of reboot and be like, okay, well, we can't really top space unless we do time travel, which they should.
They should, yeah.
But so it's sort of like a thing. Okay, and you will argue it seems like they were not successful in this, and I probably agree with you for the most part, even though I was still entertained by it. But it seems like they at least correctly realized that, okay, well, if we can't top it, we should at least go back to stuff, you know, go back to something that may be familiar, but try to be more clever about it in a way that we didn't do before. And that seems like that's what they were trying to do with the action in this. Whether or not they succeeded kind of depends on how much you were entertained by it.
Right.
But yeah, I do agree that it really is just stuff, like you said, it's either rolling or flipping a car or dragging a big object or another vehicle. And that's all stuff that we've seen in a bunch of the other movies, for sure.
Yeah, like that's what was so surprising is like I knew this was going to be cheesy and bad and, you know, be silly, but I figured I would at least see a few things that made me laugh, or at least that I hadn't seen, and I just was generally underwhelmed. You know who wasn't in this film much? Vin Diesel.
No, not really.
That's the thing, is this movie is definitely, like you said, really overstuffed. It's trying to do kind of the Avengers Infinity War thing where it's like, meanwhile here, meanwhile here, meanwhile here, but it didn't actually ever feel like that mattered. You know what I mean? Where it was like, why are they all split up? Like, I don't think they need to be split up. It felt like it just added more scenes.
I'm pretty sure they're all split up because most of the
cast hate each other,
can't stand to be in the same room as Vin Diesel.
That's extremely funny. Yeah, I was gonna say I also got the feeling of this was like really cobbled together with producer notes. Like the example that really stuck out to me is the Pete Davidson scene, which was like, it felt like a producer being like, we need it to be funnier. We need a funny scene. And they go to this like 90s internet cafe. It was like, what is happening? And the characters are like, this is so weird how this is like an old internet cafe. And I was like, yes, it is.
It is odd. Yeah, you're right.
Why are you doing this? And why are you commenting on it?
Also, was that Jim Brewer inside Jason Statham's punching bag?
I don't think so, but that would be very funny.
I really need to look. I need to search that right now.
That would be very funny if it was. But the Pete Davidson scene is like they're getting information or something.
They need to use just kind of they go to him to like buy stuff on the black market, and that's as much as they ever say. That like nothing ends up coming of that because he dimes them out and they have to run. But I don't think they ever like find the stuff out. Oh no, wait, that's when they go to Statham. Right,
yes. So that scene feels like it could have been taken completely out of the movie. And as evidenced to me by the mushrooms, the muffin, where he's like, one of them eats a drug muffin and then hallucinates in the cafe. And then in the next scene, he's just fine again. And like, to me, that just like really screamed a scene that they added later. Cause it didn't like the drug muffin. He was just on drugs for that scene and then he's fine.
Yeah.
And the rest, like shit like that, where it was like, it feels so like weirdly like slopped together in a way that's inconsistent. And like everybody again is like separated, but it doesn't feel like it builds to anything. Or like John Cena is in it to like escort Vin Diesel's son before spoilers, dying, but obviously not dying because nobody dies.
That was legitimately
all I was thinking was like, why couldn't they have had Vin Diesel and his son be on the run? Wouldn't that have been the better idea? Because by the end, when he's like with his son, I'm like, I feel no connection between these
because
two.
They've spent the whole movie bonding him with Cena.
Exactly.
So it's like that's the journey. That's the journey the kid's supposed to have with his dad. Like that's the
Like, because they had so many characters, they couldn't actually tell a cohesive story, which I know sounds silly for Fast and the Furious, because it is, because, most people don't give a shit, nor should they. But it just felt like the thing that hurt it the most for me is they also couldn't cram in any action because they're too busy doing that. It was weird.
Yeah. There's something I wanted to talk about, and it's the idea of the self-parody. where the final scene, as you mentioned, is there's this big highway car chase where they smash 2 helicopters, and John Cena uses his like twisted metal car. He's built himself a twisted metal car that shoots like a grenade or big barrel grenades. He blows himself up to save Dom and the kid, and they're quartered on this this dam, and Jason Momoa blows up 2 semi trucks, so they have to drive down the vertical face of the dam. So the finale of the movie is this like thrilling sequence. Is supposed to be maximum thrills and maximum tension for the audience as Dom is racing vertically down a dam with a huge fireball chasing him. He's got a little kid in the seat next to him, and there's fire all around him. And all I could think of was the Scorcher trailer from Tropic Thunder, where he's holding the baby.
Yes.
It's like in one of the eventual sequels because that's the gag, right? Like the sequels eventually get to the point where the hero is like stuck with a kid or some kind of weird sidekick in this ludicrous situation. He's driving vertically down the face of a dam with a huge fireball behind him. And it was just one of those moments where it was like, how did we get here? Like, this is so... You cannot care about what's happening in that scene because it's so removed from reality. Right. And it's so gotten to the point where it's like, Dom is Dom. Dom's invincible. He's Yoda in these movies. And then like, obviously Dom's kid is going to be fine. And it's just, we've seen him drive his car just casually now. He casually drives his car into like death chasms and just lands and is fine. So it's just... it's good the series is ending because it like absolutely it can't one up itself anymore, like we said, because they've already been to space, and they kind of even screwed that up a little bit, but we talked about it. They did. Go back 2 years and listen to our Fast 9 episode. But it's just funny that it's gotten so much of a parody and a one-upsmanship of itself that it just feels like I said, it just feels like farce. Like it just feels like the actors are all looking at us going like, ah.
That scene was also terribly shot. It felt like a mid-2000s scene because like the camera's like zooming through it, like trying to do that bullet time. Yeah. And I was like, this looks like garbage. And then so the cliffhanger is Jason Momoa blows up the dam, and it's like to be continued. And all I thought was like, I couldn't care less. Because I know what's going to happen. He's going to get back in that car and like surf the fucking tidal wave and not have a scratch on him because this movie has no stakes. Like it's established. You can't. So this is an interesting thing in my head. You can't do a cliffhanger if your movie has no stakes. And the Fast and the Furious, they've had no stakes for 5 movies now. You just can't do that, in my opinion. I'm sure people will see the other movie because they'll just see them, right? Yeah. And that's fine. Like, I get that. But the idea that they're like, and how would it end? And I'm like, just fucking conclude it here. Give us a big action scene.
He's gonna get out of it however you say he's gonna get out of it.
Exactly. It's stupid to pretend.
The only way this cliffhanger could surprise me is if the next movie begins with Vin Diesel just opening his mouth really wide and swallowing all of the water.
Right. And so exactly. And they should do that.
They should do that. Like, they would if they weren't cowards.
Right. And that was the thing that like just it didn't work for me because.
And then a blowhole opens up on his neck, Dave, and just sprays the water out. And then it says Fast X Part 2.
I would love that.
$1 billion opening weekend.
He turns into a whale. Yeah, I'd watch that.
Whale now.
If he was an orca or something, and then like they're like, we never told you who your parents were, and then that's part of it.
Yeah, and it's a killer whale wearing that crucifix medallion.
Right. The problem is that the movie it still feels like it reminds me of like a straight to DVD Seagal film that somehow got a huge budget, which is that it thinks it's way more serious than it is. You know what I mean? Where
it has the implied weight or like the forced feeling of weight of a game that a kid plays, like with their action figures. Like and it's no, this is totally serious. Why are you laughing? He's his best friend, but he's got the doom laser, so now he has to drive this Jeep through his face. Why are you laughing?
Right. And it's always been that where it's like he's a secret agent, but he also lives like in a suburban
but he's
house.
Also a criminal, but like
he's also a criminal, and they do barbecues, but he goes on super secret missions with his friends, but they're all car missions. And it's like, so it's stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah, that's his whole thing.
And my again, I go back to my point of view of this movie is it wasn't stupid enough in the action to make up. Like, it felt like they spent too much time on dialogue and like characters, and that stuff was garbage because of course it is.
It really was. There were a couple of real painful comedy scenes in this movie.
Yeah. And oh God. And so for me, I was just like, get to another car chase. I'm begging you.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Like, I'm almost 2 hours into this movie and you've barely given me action, and all you're giving me is like bad comedy scenes and bad dramatic scenes. And they tried to make it feel like Jason Momoa was like he's like the Joker, like he's like the main villain, and it's like, we don't know who this guy is. You're retconning him in, and then like Vin Diesel being on the run, like I love the scene after the Vatican where it's like he's a fugitive, and then they cut to him just in the Vatican, like right near where it happened in broad daylight, like, I'm a fugitive, and I'm like, run. What are you doing? And then he's just talking to Helen Mirren, and it's like, all right, if you want me to feel something, an urgency of an action movie, you got to do that, right? Mm-hmm. You got to like, they needed to cram in Helen Mirren, right? What they should have done there is another action scene when he's getting away from the cops. You know what I mean? It felt like there was no excuse not to cram more action in this when you have movies like Mad Max Fury Road that exist.
Yeah,
where it's
that's very true.
Yeah, where it's just like, or John Wick. And when they're like, no, we have to focus on the characters and the comedy and have these like so many scenes where they're just talking to each other. I was so fucking bored. When he's like, it's just like, I don't know who these people are. I don't give a shit. Like, no one does. It was just weird to me. Like this the first Brie Larson scene where they're in that like slideshow TV room.
Oh yeah,
talking to,
and it's just
Jack Reacher.
Yeah, that was the most embarrassing scene, I think, because it's just awful. It's like a real sweaty exposition dump introducing these two brand new characters and who they are and why we're supposed to care about them and how they're connected to the story. And they also have to establish that these two characters specifically have a conflict with each other. And then we also have to establish what Brie Larson's role is going to be as like the Maverick that's going to go help Dom in this like 3.5 minute just garbage dump of dialogue. Right. It's really bad.
Right. And they're acting terribly on purpose, I would hope, because they're all good actors, or most of them. So it's like, okay, the acting's bad, the dialogue's bad, there's no action happening. And there's just so much of that. The comedy was bad when it was like the weird joke that the kid's like excited about John Cena's truck. And I was like, it's just a truck, kid. And then the joke is, oh, but it's actually a small car.
It's actually an older Mustang.
He's tough, but he listens to funny music. And it was like that constantly. And it was like, I can't stand this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the acting in this movie. I keep saying it, this movie feels like a farce, and it's the acting feels like SNL sketch acting. Like it feels like in some case, I don't know. It just feels like all the actors in this movie know that this is the goofiest thing in the world, and they're leaning into it with how serious they're playing it, which on paper is a good idea, but like it doesn't always work. And scenes like this where it works when you're doing things like an Arnold line where you like the throwing a knife into a guy's chest and saying stick around. Like it's that kind of tone that they're kind of acting, but like they're doing it in a 5-minute dialogue scene.
Right.
And not in a scene where they're like, cartwheeling out of a car down a speeding highway and,
right, exactly.
Rhinos or some shit. Yeah.
They should have made excuses. It's to me, this is like a 2.5 hour porn with 20 minutes of sex. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. And the rest is just porn dialogue. And it's like, that's not why I'm here. That's why it reminded me of the Transformers movies, because those kind of had that problem too, where it's like these big stupid robots just talking to each other, and I'm like, I shoot something. I'm begging you, do something fun.
I'm grateful to the Transformers movies for that, though, because it's a guaranteed laugh from me every time when there's a trailer for a new one. Every time, true. Guaranteed laugh when a robot appears and says, "Optimus, now is the winter of our future destruction." That's never not going to be funny as shit to me.
Yeah, it is very funny.
Sadly, none of these people are giant robots, although a few members of the cast come close.
Yes. Vin Diesel feels kind of like an Optimus Prime.
There's a lot. I mean, I just meant in terms of massive dudes. Like this is this is almost like a Predator ratio of gigantic dudes.
Oh yeah, fucking Jack Reacher in this. He's like playing an agent, and I'm like, that's not what they look like. It's like it was one of those funny things where they reveal him to be a villain later, and like he gets in the action. I'm like, no shit, he's Jack Reacher.
You cast Jack Reacher, who is, I think, accidentally the biggest guy in this movie.
Yeah. It's like, gee, I wonder if he's going to fight anybody in this. Yeah. It's like silly. But he didn't even do it that much. He gets like one fucking fight scene in an alleyway.
He beats up a couple of guys, but he's going to be in the sequel, Dave.
Of course he is. This that's what it is like it was like all set up to the next movie.
Yeah, it was very, very Infinity War.
Yeah, but not entertaining to me, at least.
Not anywhere. I wouldn't say it was nearly anywhere near as successful as Infinity War was, for sure.
Yeah, like they were trying to like put everybody in this specific, but I feel like they could have done it with more action and more efficiency in general. It just, I don't know, man. I just got very little from this.
It had like 3 different plot lines going. It didn't seem like everybody was working toward the same goal. So it was like resetting your sort of pace each time it cut to a new storyline, which is something that Infinity War did really well.
Right. And it's all disconnected.
Yeah.
Where, they all just sort of, it just keeps cutting to different people going places and talking about different things. But none of it felt related. And it was like, also this feeling of like, they really thought they had to cram everybody into it. So it's like, I don't know if I need Helen Mirren here. I don't think I'd even need Jason Statham, even though I adore Jason Statham.
I mean, you always need Jason Statham.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Where it's like, I don't know. I feel like these could have been scenes with car chases and stuff instead. Man, I just really didn't get much. It really felt like they lost the thread. Is just my main thought of this, where it felt like they really didn't. They've lost control out of what these movies are and what they're supposed to be, and they sort of don't understand anymore. In my opinion, like they crammed so many characters, and like I just don't think that's what is the point of these movies.
Well, I don't know about that, because they got good responses each time they've done that, and into the whole like justice for I can't even remember his name anymore. Han. Justice for Han. But like I think I think I agree of the series having lost the thread, just in terms of it doesn't seem to have any new ideas. Because
that's for sure.
It's not just that like the action is repeating itself, but it's all of the beats with the characters keep repeating themselves. Like they've brought multiple characters back to life. They keep like it's become a joke. Like it's a joke in this movie where they keep whoever is the bad guy in one movie becomes part of the team in the next movie, and it's like Jason Momoa actually makes a joke about it. In this one, because of the whole thing with Jack Reacher, they think he's on their team, and then he's like, no, I'm not.
Right, and by the way, that was a terrible, because he spends most of the movie like, I'm bad, and then he's good for like 2 scenes, and he's I was bad, and I was like, oh yeah, I know you were bad.
I appreciated that fine, because that felt that was sort of meta, and that was honestly one of the
that's true,
one of the more clever things the movie does, because they cast him, it's like, oh okay, he's Jack Reacher, he's kind of a guy that's on the rise now, he's a great big huge guy. I just assumed he was going to be yet another guy that starts out like The Rock did, a guy that starts out as chasing them and then he realizes they're actually good, so he becomes part of the team. So I just thought it was going to be that again. Because this movie repeats it. These movies repeat themselves so often.
Right. And because they make it where he just like takes Vin Diesel's side almost immediately.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like that was weird. And then I guess it does explain it, that he was doing it on purpose to trick him. I just was like, I don't know what the point of him doing that was.
No, nothing really. It's
There's a lot. I mean, we don't. There's no point in talking about it in this sense. But like the reasons people do things in this, like Brie Larson being like, "I'm going to get you out of here by stabbing you." So you go to the infirmary and then you fight Charlize Theron, and then it like cuts away and cuts back, and they're just like not fighting, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then she like fights her again, and then she tries to escape, but it's Antarctica. And I was like, why didn't Brie Larson like explain that to her? And then like it's just like, to me, it's all obviously it's just nonsense. And then at the end, fucking Gal Gadot shows up in a sub, and I'm like, okay, like sure, like nothing matters. But again, that feels like a silly criticism, honestly. Because these are silly movies.
Yeah, but it does it does kind of speak to how it can't really it's difficult for these movies to keep you engaged sometimes, because it does just like it's them in their infirmary, they get loose. Charlize Theron gasses all the guards with this knockout gas. She said, "Okay, we have about 4 minutes. Those guys won't stay asleep for long." And then they have their fight scene, because Michelle Rodriguez just can't let it go. I'm not sure what she can't let go, because I didn't see the one that Charlize Theron was in. But they seem to suggest that she killed somebody that they cared about. So obviously they're going to fight. But they do that fight, and then it cuts away. And when it returns to them, it's Michelle Rodriguez climbing up by herself out of the vent into... she opens a hatch and realizes she's in the middle of Antarctica. And she's like, oh, great. She climbs back down, and Charlize is down there just sitting on the floor in a snowsuit. Right. And they have like an ironic conversation as she hands her a snowsuit. And mind you, it's been about 25 minutes of movie since we last checked in with them. And the last time we were checked in with them, she said they had about 4 minutes to get out of this room, but they're just hanging out there now. So it does.
There was definitely that feeling of like, did I miss a scene?
Right. So like, I don't think it's... I do see what you're saying. It's you don't want to nitpick plot holes in a movie like this, but I think something like that is actually kind of something to point out, because it undermines the pace of the movie and sort of the urgency of the movie. So it's hard to keep you like engaged when it's just like, well, nothing, like literally nothing, like not even this timetable that you just told us we had even matters.
Right. That's the thing. Like it is, you're right. Because in my opinion, this all serves the main thing, which is I think this is a bad action movie, because what makes a good action movie is, for example, urgency or like rules, or
stakes are
the
important.
Understandable. Like, why is Charlize Theron wearing that Antarctic coat when she goes down? How does she know? What, like little things like that, where I just felt like I couldn't. And it's the same with comedy, in my opinion, is like going back to the stupid fun mushroom or whatever. So you have a character eat mushrooms accidentally, right?
Mm-hmm.
He looks down at his hands. They're weird. Now I thought, oh, this is shaping up to be a cool idea, that Han now has to deal with being on mushrooms while like doing action scenes and stuff.
The very next scene is they leave that place, the Pete Davidson place where Han has eaten muffins that clearly have mushrooms or something in them. The very next scene is them going to this alley, this like sketchy place in the alley, and Han being like, okay, I have to handle this on my own. So I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh, he's going to be tripping while he's trying to do whatever this is. So that'll be a fun little game. No, he's just fine. It never references the fact that he's high again.
Yep. And so that's just bad. Like that, not even dumb bad or fun bad. Like to me, that's like, well, you added this idea in one scene and then forgets about it, to the point that I'm watching the movie. I'm like, did I miss something? Did I make that up? Did I imagine that? Like these fun opportunities for like compelling action or funny action or silly action that they just sort of don't do, because it's too overcrammed with I don't even know what at this point. where it's just like, this is bad action. And again, not so bad it's good as far as I'm concerned. It's just kind of, it bored me because it would make these offers or do these things or be like weird and disjointed in ways that just were like a little confusing and then just like generally boring. When it's like, oh, they're on a bridge and one of them has a gun to someone's head. And I'm like, okay, that's sure. I've seen that a million times, you know, like these scenes that are like, am I supposed to feel tension here? Because they broke the series already. So there's no going back to trying to make me care about characters or tension or any of that. So it just ends up being like, I don't know, just kind of bland as far as I'm concerned. There were some fun parts for sure. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I was just like fucking bored. Jason Momoa is having a lot of fun, that's for sure. He's taking a big swing.
He is. He's basically playing Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
I really appreciated it.
Yeah, I've seen people bring up that he's a queer-coded villain, which I can see that conversation for sure. I don't think they meant anything malicious by it. I think what it is that he's like, he took a big swing and I appreciate him trying. Mm-hmm. Is really what it comes down to. I'm just like, he's clearly having the most fun out of anybody else in this movie. He was like a ray of sunshine at times for me.
Oh yeah.
Where I was just like, at least he's doing something.
Yeah. He was great in every scene he was in. So
yeah, I'm talking to the dead bodies.
That was fun. Yeah. That was the only comedy scene that I actually laughed at.
Yeah. Jason Momoa is like single-handedly made this movie tolerable for me because I was just, every time he was on screen I was like, all right, at least we got this guy.
It's so
like he's having a lot of fun.
It was so weird watching this movie and like remembering, it's like, man, remember when they had him play Khal Drogo? Like, it's so funny. Right. It's so funny, like the roles that Momoa gets now as opposed to what he was getting at the beginning of his career, which is just like really intense dudes that don't say anything.
Yeah.
And it's like in this movie, he's like Daffy Ducking his way through it.
Yeah. So. And he was legitimately like the only funny person amongst other people who are comedians who do that for a living. I was just like, man, he's like acting circles around everybody else with this shit.
Yeah.
He's having a great time. John Cena was fine, but I don't think they gave him anything fun, you know?
I liked his scenes with the kid. I thought they were sweet.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's what I mean is he was good, but I don't think they gave him enough of an opportunity, I guess. Like he did have good scenes with the kid for sure, mm-hmm. but ultimately they felt like, again, like cuttable scenes where it was just like, I don't know, man, just have the kid and Dom.
Yeah, it's a baffling storyline to have in a movie like this, but
because we also like, he doesn't really have a character.
No,
you know what I mean?
We just met him last movie, yeah, and he was the bad guy last movie.
Right, when he's like sacrificing himself, I'm like, what? Why? Like, I don't know enough about this guy to know that he'd make that decision.
Yeah.
And that's the other big part of this is I wanted to point out is that, so to make a villain like this, because I want to talk about what the villain wants. And the villain wants to destroy Dom's life, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing he does is blow up the Vatican and frame Dom. And the problem with that, and the problem with the movie like this, which we already talked about, is what should happen is, honestly, he needs to kill someone who Dom cares about to actually have stakes, to actually make this a villain that's worthy of a 10th film. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, they're trying to make him like Thanos. And it's like, well, what is the first thing Thanos does? He beats the fuck out of the Hulk.
Yeah.
He takes him out of the movie. Yeah. And so it's just like, you need to do something like that to make the movie work. But since they're like contractually obligated to like keep every fucking character, even when they die, they will come back. You can't, there's not enough stakes to make the villain evil or formidable or like threatening in any like emotional way. You know what I mean?
Right, because even when they do the thing where it certainly seems that John Cena is dead, I'm not sure, because the movie has brought back more than one character from the dead.
Exactly.
So I can't, even when they do try to tell us that those stakes are there, I don't trust it. Like,
right.
I don't.
No one dies in this.
As far maybe like it seems like Cena's dead, but he might come back.
I mean, Gal Gadot came back. I mean, no one dies in the series.
Oh, I see.
Like, yeah, like no one dies. No one dies. Right. Period.
Yeah.
In the series.
Yeah.
Like, I believe by the end it'll be a net gain of lives.
Right. That dude that got killed in the very first one, like whatever his name was. I'm
sure he'll be back.
Little nerdy gearhead who dies in the very first one, and it's a big dramatic scene. He's going to come back in the next movie.
And going back, my opinion is that's fine. That's all fine if they just focused on action. And this didn't. Not nearly enough. This was like, we're going to do like drama and like raise the stakes and have an evil villain. But it's just like, you've already made a series where none of that matters.
Mm-hmm.
It just can't, I don't know. It just like, like there's no way for me to care about that stuff. Like when at the end he crashes the plane, I'm like, they're fine. They're all fine.
Oh, well, plane. Yeah, it goes around that one is real obvious that like it's I know that Ludacris and Ramsey and Tyrese and whoever else is on the airplane. Like I know they're all Han. I know they're all fine.
Yeah. They can't even do a cliffhanger with fucking the Antarctica. It would be a good like imagine if they got out of the base and they're just walking in the fucking snow and they're like, what are we gonna do? That's how you do a cliffhanger. But they can't even do that.
No.
Like it's just like there's no stakes here, so I don't know why we're spending so much of the movie on that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's one more thing I wanted to call out.
Oh yeah, and I have to talk about 4DX real quick. But yeah, you do yours.
Oh, okay. Well, I wanted to call out something that I think is a perfect example of the movie getting it right and sort of like the tone that the entire movie needed to be. There is a scene where Dom is looking around his house at pictures of his family and his extended found family as well. And they're all just production stills from the different Fast movies, but whatever. That's not what's perfect about it.
Yeah, they literally watch the old movies in this, but go on.
They do.
He
gets to, I think this might actually be later when he's in his bedroom with Michelle Rodriguez and they're trying to decide what's next for them. And he looks up at their wedding photo, Dave. And I don't know if you clocked their wedding photo, but their wedding photo is a picture of the two of them standing facing each other in front of an altar in a church, but there's nobody else around.
Right.
It seems to be in an empty church. It seems to be in the church where the finale of Romeo plus Juliet took place.
Right.
It's like a church from a music video from the 90s. And Michelle Rodriguez is wearing kind of a cool wedding dress, sort of like Madonna and like a version, something like that. But anyway, so she's wearing a dress, and Dom is wearing white slacks and a crisp white sleeveless tank top.
It's perfect.
In their wedding photo.
Perfect.
He's wearing a sleeveless white tank top.
Yeah, his finest.
His
white.
finest white tank top.
It's so
That's
good.
the tone that the entire movie needs to be.
100%. 100%. Oh, man.
And it takes itself too seriously most of the time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Unfortunately.
Improbably.
I really think this is one of the worst Fast and Furious movies. I understand liking it more than Fast 9.
I really thought the last one was worse, yeah.
I would say they're both two of the worst, as far as I'm concerned. I think that they don't really deserve people to watch another one. I think this is all set up. I think they should have taken this story and whatever the next one is and made it one film. Because this felt like they didn't have enough to put in one film while simultaneously having to cram a lot into it. Meaning that I'm just like, again, like the action scenes were sparse, and it was all just fucking exposition, and the exposition felt like by the end when they're at the dam, I was like, there are easier ways to get to this point.
Yeah.
Like this should be the halfway point of another movie. And so that's why it feels like they just wanted more money and they wanted to stretch this out. And this movie is just kind of, I think, just blah. It was underwhelming for me in general. However, the most enjoyable part of this movie to me was watching it in 4DX. And I need to share my 4DX story.
Lay it on
because
us.
I went to the Regal 4DX, and let me tell you, it was awful. It was the single most dystopian and disheartening theatrical experience I ever had. And I'm so glad I did it because it was also very funny. Because it is, I don't know if people have done 4DX. I know you did, Tom, for the what's it called?
The Equalizer.
The Equalizer. So for the Equalizer, it was silly, but they kind of knew how to tone it down for the action. For this, for the 4DX whoever designed it seemed to think that we would want to know what it felt like to get into car accidents. I literally got
that
whiplash.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I had to leave. And go watch a different showing. And I think most of the audience was miserable. The first scene in Rome, everybody was laughing because it was so ridiculous they were throwing us around. I was literally falling out of my chair. They were throwing me in the air on this 4DX and like just blasting me with air. It felt like an assault. Like I wanted to swing like at somebody. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I was being assaulted by Vin Diesel.
That's what you paid for. That's the experience.
And we were all laughing. The dystopian part was that no one was laughing at the movie or enjoying the movie. Like it was like trying to almost distract us from the movie. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where it was like just so much fucking smoke and mirrors that people when the Vatican explodes, everybody was like, woo! Even me, because it was like, that was fun. By the second fight scene or the third fight scene, silent audience. And just the sounds of like whoop, 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 of the seats and everybody just hanging on for dear life. Because by that point, everybody was just like nauseous and angry because it was awful. Like it wasn't moving the same direction as like the camera would. So like that would make people, that makes you nauseous when that happens. It was banging people around and it was doing it every fucking minute of the movie. Like you barely had a break. Like when Dom would like slam the car door, it would like jam you in a direction. And it was just like, fucking stop. Like it was just like being kicked from a million different directions. It was the funniest fucking experience I've ever had. Don't do it. You might actually get hurt. Even if you've done 4DX before, this was a particularly bad one. But that was one of the most, again, it's one of those experiences where I'm glad I did it because it was funny from like a third perspective. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like if it was in a scene in a movie. But boy, was it fucking uncomfortable. I can't believe that 4DX is a thing. It's the stupidest idea ever.
I'm really surprised they're still doing it. Like when we saw the Equalizer in 4DX 9 years ago, I was like, well, surely this won't last to the end of the year.
Yeah, it's like a bad carnival ride. Like the seats are like groaning and like, and it's just like,
there's sparks.
Again, like you ever go off-roading where you're like your butt is going out of your chair?
Yes.
On this, like it's that. They were doing that to the whole audience. And it's like I had to leave because I couldn't pay attention to the movie. And I was like, I have to talk about this movie. Like I would have stayed maybe if I didn't have to do a podcast. But I was like, I genuinely have to go watch this movie again and pay attention to it because it's just like I'm getting kicked in the face every 30 seconds. It was funny as hell though. So that's all. So I guess go see it in 4DX. Fuck it.
If you can,
go see it. Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah, really.
Just prepare for it to be awful.
I was excited to pay extra money to be uncomfortable while I watched this movie.
Yeah, that was part of it. I was just like, I'm not paying for this. I should be paid for this.
Right. I feel like this is an experiment.
Yeah. They almost challenged me because I watched like an hour of it and they were like, well, you already watched an hour. And I'm like, counterpoint, I have a blazing headache. Give me my money back. And they're like, okay, fine. Like they tried to challenge it. And I'm like, fuck you. How many other people have walked in a 4DX?
Your theater beat my ass.
Yeah. Like I like I should send you a medical bill, you fuckers. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And this is coming from someone who loves mosh pits, where I'm like, no, this isn't like intense like a roller coaster. This is just like unpleasant.
Yeah, they really need to rethink that technology.
They really do. It was really fun.
Well, thanks for that review though, Dave. That 4DX review.
4DX. It was garbage.
I don't have anything else to say about this movie, so I think we can be finished.
For sure. Yeah, I hear the next one is like 2025, and maybe by then I will have forgotten. But if I haven't, I'd rather not see another Fast and Furious movie at this point. Is my final review of this, where I'm just like, I think I'm done. Okay. I think I'm good.
Well, if I'm still alive, we'll talk about it then.
Yeah, no, that doesn't mean we won't review it, I guess. I mean, like on a personal level, where it's like I want it to be known. This is the last Fast and the Furious I go to where I wanted to go. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like as a fan, like this is it. I'm done. They squeezed it all out. This is like the final dregs of the rag.
Last bit of my goodwill.
Yeah. Yeah, I got nothing else to say. We can stop talking,
okay.
Right?
Yeah. I'm excited to stop talking.
Yeah, me too. It sounds great.
Sounds great.
We have a Patreon. Listen, folks, we have a Patreon. Patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. You go in there for just $5 a month. You get access to exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder's a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, Spiel Boys. We watch movies every Friday night with our patrons. I wouldn't be against watching some of the earlier Fast and Furiouses, and like Hobbs and Shaw, some of the later, depending. But yeah, we do that. That's a bunch of stuff on that Patreon. So check it out.
Yeah, we also have a store. Head over to GameFullyUnemployed.com where you'll find a link to our Teespring store where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So slap your NOS canister charged peepers onto that.
Yes, even though was there even NOS in this?
There was plenty of NOS, bro.
Did I miss the NOS?
Maybe the 40X seat knocked it from your memory, but yes.
Yeah, I have been like crying randomly and vomiting a lot, but it's probably fine.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Just go to sleep.
Yeah.